card gamers, Rasmero here, and today we're going to be opening the Battle Spirits Gundam Collaboration Structure Deck, Operation SEED. Of course, I've got copies of Operation Unicorn and Operation 00 as well, so do look forward to those videos and catch them once you've finished with this one. Okay, so this is the inside of the box with all Battle Spirits structure and starter decks. I believe, yes, it does come with a paper grayscale playmat with just all the zones you'll need to play Battle Spirits, the main field, Burst Zone, Life, the reserve where you place your deck, just a spot for you to place cards when they're activated or discarded, as well as your trash. And behind, yes, just like Yu-Gi-Oh! And other card games, just some general tips and rules on how you can play the game. So we're just gonna put this aside since this isn't that important for now. Let me put back that box over there, and now moving on to the inner layer. We have 2 packs of core with 15 pieces each, so a total of 30 pieces of core, as well as 1 soul core, and these are necessary to play the Battle Spirits trading card game. Although it is a TCG, for those of you guys who might be unfamiliar, it does not just involve cards, you also need these cores in order to manage your mana and basically play the game. But that's not our main focus for today. Let's take a look at the cards that we've actually got over here. Okay, so here's how I'm gonna do this, alright? I know that not all of you guys are familiar with or even interested in Battle Spirits and might be just here for Gundam, so I'm just gonna show you guys the cards and their artwork first, and then in the second half of the video, for those of you guys who are interested can stay on, and then I'll basically tell you guys about the different card effects and how this card is actually supposed to be played. So starting off, we've got an X-Rare, which is the... well, you could consider it as the ultra rare in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the triple rare in Vanguard, which is basically the highest normal rarity, although there is also double X rare on top of it, which would be more like a secret or ultimate rare in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or SP and SVR in Vanguard, where it's more of like a bonus rarity, but not really like the highest of the base. So first of all, we've got Justice Gundam as an X-Rare. How many copies of this? We've got 1, 2 copies of Justice, and here we have, of course, we need Freedom Gundam if we're talking about SEED, right? I believe we are also getting 2 copies of Freedom over here, so 2 copies of Justice and Freedom. Now we've got Strike Gundam. How many copies of that? 2. Okay, so those 3 are... is Strike an X-Rare? No, Strike is just a Master Rare, which is the second highest rarity in this in Battle Spirits. Although Battle Spirits below Master Rare has both rare and uncommon cards, so the rarity hierarchy is a bit different. Now we've got Afteron Zala as a Brave. So what Braves are essentially like the equip cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! You basically attach them onto spirits, such as the Gundams you've seen already, in order to increase their capabilities and give them like bonus effects. So we've got Afteron, and I assume 2 Kira as well. Yep, 2 Afteron, 2 Kira, and oh my god, here we've got Sky Grasper. And looks from the card border, you guys can see that this SEED deck is actually white, which in Battle Spirits translates to a more defensive kind of deck type. Their effects typically involve like resistance to enemy effects, and basically being unblockable and attacking your life, like attacking the opponent's life like that. So only 3 copies of Sky Grasper. Here we have Dual Gundam, one of the main ones. I think we've got 3 of that. Yeah, so it looks like we're just getting 3, okay. 3 of most of the cards. Here we have Blitz Gundam, another one of the main. 2 copies of that only. And here we have got Strike Gundam in deactivated mode. Oh, pretty cool. I think this would probably be like a nice opening card. 3 copies of that. And now we've got Ale Strike Gundam, the Strike but with its Ale pack for aerial combat. And here's another form of strike, Sword Strike Gundam. Let's see, I think we're getting another 2 of that. And of course, finally, Launcher Strike Gundam. So with that, we've got like literally every base variation of Strike in this deck already. The artwork's really nice though, I gotta say. And now Aegis Gundam, which I think like of the initial starting 5 in SEED, is it 5? I think it's 5, is probably my favorite, especially because of its ability to transform into a mobile armor. Really cool with the red and all that. So we've got 2 copies only of that. I've got Buster Gundam. I really like Buster as well. I generally like those Gundams with like the long sniper rifles and long range. Now we've got Haro, which is a Nexus, and in Battle Spirits, Nexuses are essentially like field spells. You put them down on the field and they give you some bonus effect that lasts for a while. Archangel, I assume, is definitely a Nexus as well. Yep, it is a Nexus. We've got 3 copies of that. And this, I believe, should be a magic card. Yeah, which is just like the magic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think I need to explain it that much more. And this card is essentially, I'll protect you. So we've got that scene with Flay and Kira over there. And now another magic card, I believe. The Descending Sword, which kind of features like that scene where Freedom, I think he deploys from the first time for the Archangel, and that's essentially all for the cards in this deck. Other than the new Gundam-themed cards, we've also got some reprints of old and very useful generic Battle Spirits cards. Here we have Extinction Wall, but with a Gundam-style artwork. In this one we see featuring Lacus Cline. We've got 3 copies of the Lacus Cline Extinction Wall, and that is essentially all the cards available in this deck. Now moving on to effects, I'm going to start with the higher rarity key cards because I believe that their effects are more significant towards the deck's playstyle and should give you guys a better idea of how the deck is supposed to play in conjunction with the smaller cost card effects. So let's start with the X-Rare Justice Gundam. First of all, this is an advance card. During your turn, by moving your soul core to the trash, you are allowed to advance this card on top of one of your spirits that is white and cost 5 or higher. So essentially, let's say you have the Aegis Gundam on the field. Yes, so you see that the Aegis Gundam is white and cost 5, right? So it fulfills all of these conditions. So if you have it summoned and on your field, anytime during your turn, you are basically allowed to advance the Justice Gundam on top of it. So that means by paying no mana cost at all, or core cost for those of you guys who are familiar with Battle Spirits, you take the Justice from your hand and then you place it on top of your Aegis Gundam and it basically becomes the Justice. This is essentially the advance effect. At levels 1, 2, and 3, it possesses phase shift armor cost 7 and lower, which means that this Justice Gundam won't be affected by the effects of any of your opponent's cards that are cost 7 or lower, and this is pretty much a trademark of the white color in Battle Spirits. At levels 2 and 3, when this spirit attacks, if it is blocked by an enemy spirit, send that enemy spirit to the bottom of your opponent's deck. After that, once per turn, you can refresh these spirits, and refresh basically means like similar to, okay, this is completely different from Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard, but in card games such as Duel Masters, whenever one of your creatures or monsters or spirits attacks, you have to tap it in order to show that it's attacking, and this means that it can only attack once per turn while it is untapped. So in Battle Spirits, you attack by tapping, and then refreshing basically means that you untap it back, allowing it to make an additional attack. So this Justice Gundam secondary effect essentially allows you to basically get rid of your opponent's blocker that is being used to block your Justice Gundam's attack, while giving you an additional effect instead. So it's a very interesting and powerful effect that's at the same time both offensive and defensive. Now, here comes the Freedom Gundam. Just like the Justice Gundam, this is an advance card and it holds the same condition of requiring a spirit that is white and cost 5 or higher, so the Aegis will fit just fine as well. However, the Freedom can advance not just only on your turn, but during both players' attack steps, which is essentially the battle phase. So even when your opponent is attacking you, as long as you have a relevant spirit, you can basically chain, to use Yu-Gi-Oh! Terminology, or in Battle Spirits terminology, it's basically activating an effect during flash timing. You'll basically be allowed to advance your Freedom Gundam down while your opponent is attacking you. So that's kind of a defensive maneuver. At levels 1, 2, and 3, when this spirit is summoned or advanced, negate all of your opponent's spirit's effects, and choose 2 of your opponent's spirits and send them back to the bottom of your opponent's deck in any order that you like. So that is definitely pretty sick. So if like your opponent has a whole field of spirits set up ready to get rid of all of your life, you can basically advance Freedom as a defensive maneuver, send back 2 of your spirits and basically protect yourself by reducing the number of attacks by 2. Its second effect at levels 1, 2, and 3 is the same as Justice, phase shift armor cost 7 or lower, which is another defensive effect. And at levels 2 and 3, when this spirit attacks, at the end of the battle, take 1 of your opponent's life's core and move it to trash, which essentially means inflicting 1 damage to your opponent's life. So that is a very powerful effect, regardless of whether Freedom's effect actually manages to break through or not. Even if your opponent blocks it and their spirit gets destroyed, you are still able to deduct from their life. So this is really I would say it's really the key card of this deck, like being both defensive while also allowing you to meet your win condition of reducing the opponent's life to 0 as well. Now let's talk about Afteron Zala. This Brave, while it's in a spirit state, this Brave cannot attack or block, and this is a common recurring theme that we will see throughout all the pilots in these 3 Gundam collaboration decks, because I think they're kind of trying to be faithful to the series where the Gundams as spirits are able to basically attack and block as like normal monsters on par with the typical monsters that we see in battle spirits, but because pilots are essentially like just normal humans that are just there to control and pilot the Gundams by themselves without combining them or braving them to a Spirit Gundam, they are basically unable to attack or block. So unless you combine them, they are basically, they have no power on the field essentially. Afteron can be braved or equipped to any spirit that is on mobile suits and cost 4 or higher, and while braved, whenever that spirit attacks, if your life is 3 or lower, once per turn you can refresh or untap one of your white spirits. So Afteron's pretty good. He's like just kind of supporting your game when your life is basically not at max. It essentially allows you to give you an additional attack once per turn. Afteron's second effect, while braved, Flash, when this spirit attacks, you can destroy this spirits in order to destroy one of your opponent's spirits. Atheron! So this is just essentially like the typical Atheron maneuver from the SEED series. Like at first when he uses Aegis, after Nicole dies, the first time he uses Aegis to grab onto Kira's strike and then self-destructs both at the same time. And then secondly, at the end of the series, when he self-destructs Justice in the core of, I can't remember what's the name, but like basically the giant laser that the leader of Zaft was going to use to destroy all of Earth. Again, he sacrifices himself for the greater good. This is essentially a reflection of that effect. So, I mean, it's not, I have to say it's kind of not very white in nature, but I guess it can be pretty useful at certain times, especially if you're fighting against a non-white deck which won't really have any resistance to your destruction effects. Now, let's take a look at Kira Yamato. Just like Afteron, while in spirit form, this Brave cannot attack or block. Just like Afteron, this Brave can be braved only to mobile suits that are cost 4 or higher, while braved whenever this spirit attacks or blocks, your opponent's spirits that are destroyed by this spirit, instead of being destroyed and sent to the trash, are sent to the bottom of your opponent's deck. So this is kind of reminiscent of like Kira's pacifist philosophy, which I think only really comes into play after he gets the freedom, where instead of destroying the opponent's mobile suits, they are sent to, instead of the graveyard, to the bottom of the opponent's deck instead. Which can actually be very powerful, because for some decks, especially like Fire and especially like Red and Purple, there are many effects that allow you to retrieve useful cards from your graveyard or trash. But if you use Kira's effect to send them to the bottom of the deck instead, it makes it a lot harder for your opponent to retrieve them. Kira's second effect, while braved, whenever this spirit attacks, send one of your opponent's spirits that is of cost equal to or lower than your spirit back to your opponent's hand, and if this effect successfully managed to return an opponent's spirit, take one core from the void and move it to your spirit. So essentially reducing the amount of spirits on the opponent's field while giving you a core boost. Now for the normal Strike Gundam, at level 1 and level 2, when this spirit is summoned, you can destroy one of your opponent's burst, which is essentially their set trap card, to use Yu-Gi-Oh terminology, and because there's only one slot for it, you're basically eliminating all of their traps at the same time. At levels 1 and 2, whenever this spirit attacks and blocks, you can take one core from the void and move it to this spirit, so essentially increasing your mana with a core boost as well. This seems to be a recurring theme with the Kira series. At level 2, this spirit gets phase shift armor cost 4 or less, and at level 2, this spirit's cost increases by 1, from 4 to 5, and why this is important is because the two advent cards in this deck, Justice and Freedom, both require a white spirit of cost 5 or higher, so when it's at level 2, it basically becomes an applicable advent target for both those Gundams. So there we go for the typical strike. Now let's move into Aegis. At levels 1 and 2, when this spirit is summoned and when this spirit attacks, ignoring the cost of their Brave, you can take one cost 5 or less opponent's spirit and return it to the opponent's hand. So, on a whole, I feel like the Afteron line, Aegis and Justice, they are more aligned to this like sort of returning cards to the opponent's hand mechanic. So basically quickly reducing the opponent's field, whereas Kira's cards on the other hand for Strike and Freedom, they are more related to core boosting and returning to the opponent's deck. And at level 2, this spirit gains a phase shift armor, cost 4 or less, so just like the original Strike. Now let's move on to the variants of Strike. First we have Sword Strike Gundam. First of all, Sword Strike possesses the Striker Pack Equipment Change effect. If on the field you have a card with Strike Gundam on its name and it either attacks or blocks, so you're gonna exhaust it, you can basically take this card from your hand and exchange it with this card you have on the field in an untapped or refreshed condition. So this Sword Strike will essentially be untapped when you place it into the field. Do take note, however, that equipment change can only be used once per turn, and if you use it while your other Strike Gundam on the field is attacking, by returning it to the hand, you are basically making that attack disappear or that block disappear, so you will have to follow up the action with your Sword Strike Gundam or any of your other Gundams if you do want to continue with that attack or block. At levels 1, 2, and 3, Flash during either player's attack step. Once per turn, you can pay 1 cost, destroy one of your opponent's nexuses, and this effect can only be blocked by the Bullet Curtain effect. And sorry, I'm not too sure what the Bullet Curtain effect is, if it's exclusive to Gundam or maybe it might be found in older cards as well. That one I'm not too sure. And at levels 2 and 3, it gains phase shift armor, cost 4 and less, just like the Strike and the Aegis. Now we have Strike Gundam Deactivate mode. At levels 1 and 2, when you summon this spirit, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. From among them, you can add any card with Strike Gundam in its name into your hand and return the remaining cards in any order that you like to the top of your deck. So yes, fitting for the Deactivate mode, it's essentially a Strike Gundam Searcher. At level 2, during your main step, if this spirit's effect reveals a white mobile suit spirit using its effect, you can add one of them to your hand. So essentially what this means is that if this card is at level 2 and you activate its original when summoned effect and then you reveal 4 cards of your deck, not only are you able to add all the cards with Strike Gundam in your name to your hand, you can also add one additional card of your choice so long as there is a white mobile suit, which means this basically applies to your Freedom and Justice as well. So that is honestly a very effective way to search out the key cards in your deck, especially considering its level 2 condition is only having 2 cores. So that's quite difficult to achieve. That's quite simple to achieve. So let's take a look at the next Strike cards. Moving on from this, I'm gonna put the Archangel aside first. Alright. So just like Sword Strike Gundam, Ale Strike Gundam possesses the same equipment change striker pack effect. At levels 2 and level 3, it gains phase shift armor, cost 4 or less. And at level 3, during your attack step, this spirit cannot be blocked by opposing spirits that are of the same cost or less. So essentially, cost 5 or less cannot block the Ale Strike, which is kind of fitting considering his like aerial armor, which gives him more mobility and allows you to quickly get rid of the opponent's life. So there we have the Ale Strike. Was that only 1 copy? The rest might be elsewhere. Now let's take a look at the Blitz Gundam. Oh man, at levels 1, 2, and 3, when this spirit is destroyed by your opponents, you can take 1 card named Aegis Gundam from your hand or trash, which is your graveyard, and summon it at no cost. Come on, man! Like, give Blitz something to do other than die just so that Afteron can show off. Like, seriously, you don't have to be that faithful to the show. Oh my god, levels 2 at level 3, it gains phase shift armor, cost 4 or less, and at level 3, when this spirit attacks, by paying 2 cost, this spirit refreshes, untaps, and also becomes unblockable. Oh, wait a minute. Now that's pretty sick and really is in line with like the Blitz Gundam's like a Mirage Fog camouflage ability, and at being only cost 3 with 2 reductions, essentially meaning that Blitz Gundam can be brought out at a minimum of like 1 cost. That really allows you to have a very easy unblockable attack to finish off your opponent. Now that I like. Now up next we have the Sky Grasper, which is, wow, even more expensive to summon than the Blitz Gundam technically. So first, Flash. During either player's attack step, if you have a Nexus on your field that contains the attribute Mothership, which is definitely going to be Archangel at this point, you are basically allowed to summon this card, Sky Grasper, from your hand. And if you do, during this turn, you can basically ignore the limitation of Equipment Change Striker Pack, which says that you can only activate this once per turn and activate it an additional time. So very fitting along with the show as well. Basically, by summoning this card from your hand from the Archangel, it allows you to Equipment Change Strike Gundam's Striker Packs twice per turn. At levels 1 and 2, when this spirit is summoned or destroyed, you can take one core from the void and either move it to one of your white mobile suit spirits or one of your mothership nexuses, so either the Archangel or any of the Gundams in this structure deck. So a very nice support card, I must say, in the Sky Grasper. Let's continue looking at the spirits for now, taking a look at this next batch. Yeah, so we've already seen Ale, so I'm gonna put Ale aside. Let's take a look at Buster next. At levels 1, 2, and 3, when this spirit is summoned, return one of your opponent's spirits to the hand. A very simple effect. Levels 2 and 3, it gains phase shift armor, cost 4 or less. At levels 2 and 3, flash during either player's attack step. By tapping this spirit or exhausting these spirits, you can return 2 of your opponent's spirits with only 1 core back to the hand. So essentially, Buster's just gonna do its sniping thing, which is gonna go off pretty well whenever you summon it. However, if your opponent doesn't protect their spirits enough by only leaving 1 core on them or 1 mana on them each, you basically are allowed to return 2 every turn. In another sense, it also prevents your opponent from swarming your field, because then they have to be careful about the amount of core that they leave on their spirits. They can't just summon 1 each. Summon spirits with 1 core each. Now I'm gonna move the duel up in front of this magic card, and let's talk about the Launcher Strike Gundam. As usual, it has the Equipment Change Striker Pack effect, which can only be used once per turn unless you use Sky Grasper's effect. At levels 1 and 2, flash during either player's attack step once per turn. You can pay 1 cost and return 2 of your opponent's spirits with 10k or less BP back to the hand. So if Buster is a sniper, Launcher Strike is much more of like a heavy, powerful beam weapon, which really is able to affect much more applicable units, because 10k or less is gonna basically apply to most spirits, if not ultimates in this game, so it's a very powerful effect that returns opponent's cards to the hand. And at level 2, it gains phase shift armor, costs 4 or less, just like basically all of the base Gundams in SEED we've seen so far. Next, we have the Dual Gundam at level 1, 2, and 3. During the opponent's attack step, even if this spirit is exhausted or tapped, it can still block. Yes, this is really in line with Ezek's personality, I gotta say, like how tenacious he was during the series. And then at levels 1, 2, and 3, whenever this spirit attacks or blocks, this spirit gains power plus 3k. So on top of that tenacity, he does gain like an effect boost when you make use of that tenacity as well. So I think really fitting, but at the low cost, and his BP is pretty low as well. So not too sure how useful he'd really be in the end. At cost 2 and 3, at levels 2 and 3, he also gains phase shift armor, cost 4 and below. So with that, I believe that's all the Gundam/spirits in this set. Let's take a look at the magic cards. First, we have the Descending Sword. Flash, return one of your opponent's spirits to the hand. After that, if there is a spirit card that is a mobile suit in your trash or grave, during this turn, your opponent's spirits and ultimates that are cost 4 or higher cannot reduce your life with their effects. So it's essentially, just like this scene suggests, a completely protective effect that will allow you to survive the turn as long as your opponent doesn't swarm you with low cost units. So we'll just put that aside for now. Let's take a look at the other spell that was in this deck, which I believe is I'll Protect You, the one with Flay and Kira. So this is a burst magic, which means you can kind of set it as a trap and activate it when the conditions are met. Burst, you can activate this set burst when one of your spirits is either destroyed or depleted by your opponent. By destroyed, we mean typical destruction, and by depletion in battle spirits, that's what happens when your spirit runs out of core and essentially it's sent to the trash as a result, which is a trademark of purple decks. Reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, and from among them, you are allowed to summon 1 cost 5 or less mobile suit spirits at no cost, and return the remaining cards in any order that you like to the bottom of your deck. After this burst effect activates, by paying the cost, you are also allowed to activate this card's flash effect. Flash, refresh one of your spirits that is a mobile suit, so essentially allowing you either more attacks or more blocks, even if this burst is activated during your opponent's turn, but you do have to pay the cost. So next we have Haro, which is a Nexus. At levels 1 and 2, when this Nexus is activated, you can reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. From among them, you can take one white card which contains the attribute Mobile Suit, Mobile Armor, Mothership, supporting machine, pilots, or captain or crew. From within those cards, one of them, and add them to your hand, and then discard the rest of the cards. So, considering the variety of attributes revealed here, I don't think it'll be a surprise if we eventually get a Gundam booster with more cards, because I don't think we've got like a captain, like ship captain cards just yet in this, or crew cards just yet in this structure deck at least. And at level 2, when your opponent's hand size increases as a result of one of their effects, for each card that they gained, your opponent has to discard one card, and if your opponent discarded cards as a result of this effect, return this Nexus to your hand, which essentially means you're allowed to deploy it again and get that additional search for any of the cards that meet the attributes that I mentioned earlier. So this is actually a pretty sick Nexus, even though it's just a Haro. So now I think we are down to the final card and Nexus in this deck, which is going to be the Mothership Archangel. So first of all, at level 1 and 2, this Nexus possesses the Bullet Curtain, cost 5 or less effect. So now we know what that restriction in, was it the Sword Strike Gundam's effect was for, right? So it's basically not able to affect the Archangel in that sense. This Nexus is not affected by effects of your opponent's cards that are cost 5 or less. At levels 1 and 2, flash during either player's attack step once per turn by paying 2 cost. This Nexus becomes treated as cost 5 and then return one of your opponent's spirits back to the hand. And now why this is important is because all of the Gundams in this set possess like phase shift armor level 4 or less, cost 4 or less, so as long as the Archangel is cost 4, it is not able to return the opponent's SEED Gundams back to the hand. But the moment you activate this effect, it becomes cost 5, allowing you to basically affect anything except freedom and justice. At level 2, during either player's attack step, whenever one of your mobile suit spirits attacks or blocks, take one core from the void and move it to one of your spirits. So honestly, this is an incredibly powerful effect, essentially increasing your mana, giving you a core boost every single time one of your spirits attacks or blocks. So it's going to be this Archangel is going to be a really key card in this deck, where setting it up really early will basically allow you to accumulate a lot of core in the long run, allowing you to basically set up your field a lot easier and demolish your opponent with a large amount of high cost spirits or Gundams. Finally, we have the reprint of Extinction Wall with Lacus Klein on the artwork. This is a burst card, and the burst condition is you may activate this set burst card after your life is decreased. When this burst is activated, for each core that you lost from your life, take a core from the void and place it back in your life. So essentially, negating all of the damage that you just took from whatever attack or effect that you just received. After that, by paying the cost, you can activate this card's flash effect. Flash when this battle ends, end the attack step or the battle phase. So essentially, making it impossible for your opponent to finish you off if they haven't done so just yet. So this is quite an old card in the Battle Spirits for white and is a pretty good defensive card and really makes sense to be placed together in this Gundam Operation SEED deck. And with that, that's all the cards and their effects. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a like. Let me know what you guys think about these Battle Spirits and Gundam collaboration cards in the comment section down below. And don't worry, I'm working on opening and getting ready my videos for the Operation SEED and Operation Unicorn collaboration decks as well. So with that, hope to see you guys in the next Gundam deck opening.